Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the SoundStage Audiophile Podcast. For the past few years, host Jorden Guth has been learning about the who, the what, and the when of hi-fi from the pioneers who made our hobby what it is today, as well as the modern innovators who are constantly striving to push performance to new levels. That's not going to change, but this year he'll also be learning about the other two W's, where your favorite gear is made these days, and why. So with that out of the way, let's see who Jorden is chatting with this time around.
Hello and welcome to the SoundStage Audiophile Podcast. Today we are joined with Brent Butterworth and Dennis Berger for our 100th episode. So we wanted to bring both you folks back on. Dennis, obviously, you're the producer of this show, so you never really left, but maybe you got a little bit less in front of the microphone. And Brent wanted to kind of bring you back on and talk about how this podcast originally started, where it's been, where you guys have been, and everything that kind of comes up in between.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jorden.
So maybe I'll start with, how did this podcast, the SoundStage Audiophile Podcast, originally come to be between the two of you?
Do you want me to tell the story, Brent?
Dennis, you remember everything and I remember nothing, so go ahead.
So at the time that it started, it actually started as an article. So I was going through, I had like 3 surgeries in the course of 1 month, and I was really struggling with like how I was going to get my editorial for the month done and freaking out about it. And Jeff Fritz was the editor of SoundStage at the time. And he was like, man, it ain't no problem. Just look, we'll get it done. Just tell you what, get on the phone with Brent and just y'all have a conversation about, headphones versus speakers, and just write a story about that. So I got on the Zoom call with Brent and we had that conversation. And as I was reading back the transcript, I realized the transcript was more entertaining than any story that I could write. So I just transcribed it and published that as my editorial for the month. And Doug Schneider, founder of SoundStage, read that and was like, "But you guys are great together. Y'all should start a podcast." And so we did. We started the SoundStage Audiophile Podcast, and the rest, I guess, is history, as they say.
I forgot all about that.
I did not know that origin story at all.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was something that I could not sit at the time. There was a period of about a year and a half where I could not sit at all. This was something that I could do work related, where I could stand. I had, microphone stand, a standing desk at my computer. And so, it was something that I could do to keep productive and keep active that didn't require me to sit.
I love it.
Yeah.
And with that original, with the original podcast, I think there was like 25 episodes or somewhere around there.
Yeah, a year. I think it was 26.
26.
Yeah.
And basically, you and Brent on a weekly, bi-weekly, I don't even remember the cadence.
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly would jump on and you'd have a conversation to talk about XYZ, something related to relevant hi-fi news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we were kind of lazy. We honestly, I think I had been actually kind of thinking about doing a podcast, and it had a lot of people try to talk me into it. People with bad ideas, but you can edit this out, Dennis. It's early in the morning for me here. So a few people have been hitting me up for ideas to do podcasts, and nobody I wanted to do a podcast with, all people who wanted to basically make a promotion for their products or whatever, or their clients' products. And but it kind of got the idea in my head, and I'm a podcast fan, and I had been listening a lot to a podcast called Your Morning Coffee, which is done by 2 music industry veterans, and who are, one of whom is a really good friend of mine. And their format was basically like they read the trades and they commented on stories they read in the trades. And I thought, well, that's easy. All we got to do is, we're already reading these magazines and websites and stuff. Why not just comment on that rather than having to actually research and find good stories? So it's a pretty lazy approach. But, it works. I think it works. And, we're already employed.
Yeah, I was a fan of the original podcast and kind of you two going back and forth, and you guys have a good banter, and there was a lot of information there. And I mean, when essentially, for those that don't know, Brent, you ended up taking on a job that effectively prevented you from continuing the podcast at SoundStage.
Right. I couldn't work for a publication that was perceived to be competing with Wirecutter, even though it's obviously not, but whatever, Why fight it?
So in Dennis, from what my memory is how I got brought into this, you were like, I like doing the podcast with Brent, but like it's not really my thing to just jump on and talk about something solo for a period of time.
Well, the biggest problem is that I just, I've struggled with like crippling social anxiety my entire life. And I joke, although it's not really a joke, that Brent is my emotional support animal. And it was really just like, I couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else but Brent. I couldn't imagine being comfortable having a recorded conversation with anybody else but Brent. So when Brent had to leave, it was just, to me, it was ludicrous to think that I would keep doing the podcast either by myself or with anybody else, anything like that. And, I hated that because I'd learned so much co-producing. So Brent and I produced the first season ourselves. And he would take an episode and I would take an episode. And it's like, when we started, man, I knew what a compressor was. I didn't really understand how they worked. I knew EQ, but my, experience with EQ was mostly like room EQ, not EQing voice for audio production. So I had to learn audio production, and Brent really sort of taught me as much as he could. And then I went off and watched YouTube videos and read books and things like that about audio production. So I learned a lot. So it was like, no, that was a really fun experience that I'm going to take a lot of knowledge from and a lot of experience from. But the idea of continuing it, nah. And it's like, so we immediately, when Brent knew that he was going to have to leave SoundStage, we immediately started thinking of like, who's going to pick up the ball? Who's going to follow? Because it's not going to be me.
Wow. And then tag in myself here. From my perspective, my first memory of this was, for those who don't know, I've been filming with SoundStage as a videographer for over a decade now at this point. So I end up at these different companies, and I kind of have a background in tech, and I'm very nerdy, and I like to know how things work and all of that. And apparently I ask a lot of questions. Whether or not they're good is up for debate. But Doug goes, hey, would you be interested in doing a podcast? You kind of have a podcast voice and you ask a lot of questions. Do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, well, I mean, like, I'd be interested. He's like, come meet this guy. Come meet Dennis. And then he put us in touch. And I remember just having that first conversation with you. And my biggest worry there was, I am by no means, like, I don't have the season or the expertise or the kind of wealth of knowledge that either of you have in terms of the audio field. How do I start a podcast or kind of host a podcast if I don't have that? And I think
that's how the idea for the concept of season 2 started. In permaculture, there is a saying, the problem is the solution.
Yeah.
And the problem was, you had a lot to learn about audio reproduction. That's the solution. Season 2 is Jorden gets to learn about audio reproduction and the world gets to witness it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think for me, it's like, Doug still jokes, he's like, you got basically like a PhD, you got a degree in audio from the people that essentially defined audio. And that was kind of a really unique opportunity for me. I'm extremely fortunate. People were able to kind of follow along. And I think season 1, we had some like really cool guests.
Season 2?
Well, season 1 as well.
What? Oh, but I was thinking about.
Oh,
like
sorry.
You're,
Sorry. You're absolutely right. Season 2 of the podcast, season 1 for me.
Yeah.
You guys were great guests to yourselves as well. But yeah, I think that was kind of an eye-opening experience for me. I was on calls with like Bernie Grunman and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
legend. What episodes stand out of your first season 2? Like, are there any big ones?
Anthony Gramani was pretty cool. I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so and I remember seeing The Phantom Menace in theaters. So that one really stood out for me from that cultural aspect. There was a lot. Like, was the first Sean Olive one in season 2 or season 3. I don't quite remember.
I think that might have been season 2. Yeah.
It might have been season 2. A lot of these are blurring together, but that was another one where there was a huge wealth of information. And I mean, everyone, right? Like everyone from that NRC history and story and all of that really kind of not only helped give me quite a bit of insight into audio and how we understand what good quality audio is objectively.
Right.
But it also kind of gave me a little bit of Canadian pride because it literally happened about 15 kilometers from my house. So there's a little bit of flag waving there for my side.
The standout for me in season 2 was the interview with Lawrence Dickey for so many reasons, not least of which is it's just an amazing conversation. But like we had so many discussions behind the scenes about just scrapping that episode because it was a technical nightmare. Like for one thing, like most audiophiles, Lawrence doesn't own headphones, right? Yep. So and number 2. He did not have his reading glasses. So when we were recording that episode, he was recording it on his Android phone.
Yep.
And had to have the phone far enough away from him that he could focus on your face, because if you brought it too close, he couldn't see because he didn't have his reading glasses and he wanted to be able to see you.
Yep.
So we've got an Android phone sitting like 4 feet away from him in a noisy room. A, number 1, big problem there. B, number 2, we got to the end of the recording and he could not upload his files because the way we record is through a platform called Riverside, where we record losslessly and in the browser, and that file uploads in the background, and he never could complete his upload. But there's always a safety track recorded by Riverside that's over the cloud, and it's very low fidelity, it's very low quality, it's very compressed, but it's both participants together in mono, but we produce in stereo. So to get as clean a track as I could from Lawrence, given that we never could get him to upload his file, I basically had to download your clean track, level match it with your voice in the low fidelity safety track, invert you to try as best I could to erase you from that track and clean it up to use that as Lawrence's track.
Wow.
And I would say overall, that episode was probably, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like 45, 50 hours of production time just to get that episode done. So there was all sorts of discussions about like, God, do we just kill? Is this just too much effort, right? And but the conversation was, I think, too good to leave to circumstance. So plowed through. So when I think back to season 2, that's the episode that stands out to me, not just because it was an amazing conversation, but just because, man, we had to do work to get it done.
I think one of the kickers for me in that one is later on, because I was literally with Lawrence maybe a week before, maybe 2 weeks before, in his like research studio, workshop, whatever you want to call it, filming with him.
Yeah.
So I potentially could have brought all my stuff there and just recorded it, but we didn't have that kind of idea, and we kind of later did, and that I know we have other challenges with further seasons and all this.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. We could have done that. Yeah, Lawrence is an amazing dude. Really extremely knowledgeable, very down to earth, very like I'm gonna say hippie in like the most positive way possible.
Yeah.
And he loves sharing and he loves kind of educating. And every time I talk to him, he kind of gives me something to think about and kind of teaches me something. So yeah, that was a great conversation. The post process on that was a nightmare.
Yeah. Brent, did you listen to that one? Did you listen to the Lawrence Dickey episode?
Yeah.
What'd you think? You think it was worth the effort?
It was. I'm gonna say it. I now that I understand what you went through, it's a pretty great accomplishment, because it sounded like a pretty typical podcast recorded by someone who doesn't have a decent microphone, which usually means they're using their phone. So it sounded kind of normal. Like it did not, I was like, oh, this isn't as good a fidelity as usual, but I guess they had something going on, or he didn't have a microphone. I mean, get a USB microphone, people.
Yeah.
It's just not that hard.
And headphones. I don't understand why audiophiles hate headphones so bad, but they just, we've talked to several audiophiles that were like, hey, do you have headphones that you can connect to your phone? And they're like, no, it's against my religion. So,
yeah, it's like Sony 7506s are $100 or something. And I mean, you could probably even there's probably something decent for $35 or something like that. And there's just no excuse for this. And if, everybody, look, let's face it, everybody has a podcast and everybody's guesting on other people's podcasts. So part of being like a professional nowadays, if you're a guy on the production line doing the speakers, it doesn't matter. But if you're the head speaker dude or whatever, or the marketing person from some company, you should have a decent USB microphone. And you can go to wirecutter.com and read my reviews of USB microphones, or you can even email me and I'll help you out. But
good plug.
So that was a great plug. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after season 2, basically the premise of season 2, and you already kind of laid it out for us, was the idea that I am kind of new to audio. I've been around audio, but I don't really know a lot. And I still feel that way. The more that I learn, the less I know. I think that's the saying. And I definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
Season 3 came about. And was it season 3 that we started... I started going to the places and recording on scene, or was that the latest one?
Not so much. We were still doing that on Riverside, but I don't know if you were really aware of this, the background, like what. So Doug Schneider, our founder and Guiding Light, Doug likes consistency. Let's just say that. We had done one season of the show, me and Brent, and then that was a year exactly, and then a year was coming up, your first anniversary. And I was kind of like, Doug, are we going to do seasons? Like, are we going to do a season 3, or is it just like season 2 in perpetuity? And he's like, no, we got to have we got to do a season 3. We got to start a new season. And that's when he started thinking about what's going to be different. Like, the idea really came from him. Like, oh, let's start doing the history, Jordan's getting the fundamentals. He's getting the understanding of how this stuff works, but we've got an opportunity to do a real history lesson here. And that's when the idea came about to start doing talking to the pioneers of the NRC research and doing that oral history, which, man, to this day is still some of the stuff I'm most proud of, because I think we created an incredible oral history of all of that research. And we talked to most of the major players, and I thought the conversations were just amazing.
Yeah, that was a standout moment. And I always kind of mix them up in terms of when we spoke to some of these people for the first time, because we've had a lot of repeat guests covering different topics or covering new things. But the history of it was fascinating. We basically went back to as far back as I'm going to say the 60s or so. When I think of
talking to Paul,
yeah, Paul Barton. There was Ian Cahoon. I can't ever say his name properly. I apologize. Cahoon.
Yeah.
And then we had James on as well, which, by the way, I think he's now playing in the over 80s hockey tournaments, which is wild.
Wow.
But we kind of went back to the beginning before there was any consistency, or before there was a lot of, I guess there was already research being done. How would I describe that? Before there was very
consistent and codified, methodology.
Methodology, exactly. Before there was defined methodology of speaker testing and kind of all of that, we went to why that came about. One of the things that always sticks out to me is this idea that previous to a lot of this NRC research, there was a sound of the speakers. There was a British sound of speakers. There was an American sound of speakers. There was a German sound of speakers. And the idea that you would only buy a speaker for a certain genre of music was kind of this common place. I think that's wild.
Yeah.
A lot of people still believe that.
I was there for so much of that. And I met Floyd when he was still at the NRC. And so none of this, I shouldn't say none, this research wasn't very well publicized until Floyd joined Harman, right? And then Harman, it took him a couple of years to incorporate his work, as he's explained in your podcast. And once that started rolling, they started having press events and they started flying people out to Northridge, California, to their headquarters to talk about all this stuff. And so, I mean, just as Floyd has pointed out, he was doing this stuff for 10 years before there was a lot of public awareness of it.
Yeah.
And which is kind of sad. And that, here we are, 40 years later, and people are still pretending like we don't know how measurements relate to the sound of a speaker,
or people that still don't believe measurements are at all important.
Yeah. But, I think a lot of the press was converted. And at the same time, I think a lot of the, they were doing all these events, and I was just starting to do speaker measurements. And Stereophile had done speaker measurements for a few years. I think they really got rolling on it around 1994, something like that, because they were putting mattresses up in their room and stuff like that. But then they finally got gear to do it. And John Atkinson is easily smart enough to figure all that stuff out. So, I remember there were articles from like J. Gordon Holt talking about how, oh yeah, audiophile speakers have a bump at 2 kilohertz and stuff like that, right? And a lot of people were kind of embracing all these random ideas. Oh yes, good speakers have to be this, good speakers have to be that. But then around the late 90s, Harman started talking about this stuff, and Floyd got out there, and he's a pretty persuasive spokesperson for all this stuff. And he also has the benefit of not being a marketing guy, so people actually believe him. And so, they were talking about this stuff, and fine. And, I remember Atkinson did an article, probably 98, 99. And he was talking about how, hey, you know what? I looked at our measurements, and there's all these different people talking about how an audiophile speaker has this kind of sound and blah, blah, blah. But, by and large, the speakers that our reviewers rave about are the ones that measure flat on axis and well-behaved off axis, the same stuff Floyd was talking about. At the same time, I was at Home Theater Magazine. We were doing shootouts we did blind tests every month. Well, mostly blind. When we tested theater chairs, that wasn't blind. But, we were doing blind tests every month, and I was starting to notice, I remember we did one with a bunch of speakers, and I think there was an Atlantic Technology one in there that Vance Dickinson, the famous speaker engineer, had done the crossovers and everything for, and measured beautifully, measured dead flat. And so I'm looking at which ones are winning our shootouts, our blind shootouts. And it's oh geez, the ones I'm measuring that measure good are the ones that also win these shootouts. And at that point, I think more people, by about 2000, more people had started to realize it. But it took, 14, 15 years for this to catch on, which, honest to God, is not that bad.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we were talking about speakers. There was also the headphone and the Harman curve. That was introduced a little bit later, a little bit later, but kind of.
Yeah, that took 10 years,
Yeah.
And that was kind of doing the same thing for the headphone side of it.
Yeah, and there's still people that reject it, but it took, I remember, Sean published that first paper in 2013, I want to say, somewhere in there. And I read it, and Kyle Hertzens, who was running Interfidelity, the headphone review site, read it. And, I was doing headphone reviews for Sound and Vision then, and I bought measurement gear, and I bought the measurement gear, and there was nobody who could tell me what to do with it, basically. Measurement companies are more helpful now than they were then, that's for sure. And, it wasn't until Sean came out with that first paper, I'm oh, he's using the same gear I am, so if my measurements match his, I must be right. And it was
nice.
Great. But I read that paper, Tyle read it, and I read Tyle religiously back then. He was a huge influence on me. And, I'm kind of yeah, this looks, and I was doing a lot of not blind, but decent level matched headphone tests with listening panels. And it's yeah, this pretty much squares with what I'm finding. And of course, there's still people that say, oh no, Harman curve sucks and blah blah blah, but it's basically correct. But it took years for it to catch on,
Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective because we hear the people that do the research and they present the research. And you kind of made the point, like Floyd is not a marketing guy. He's not a sales guy. So when it comes to him doing this research, he cares very deeply about it. And this is his life's work. Like the book that he published and all that, it is all about this. And he's not the type of person to say like, here, shove it down your throat. This is the findings. This is how we achieved these findings. It's very scientific. So it's very hard to argue those facts, even though some people basically neglect them entirely.
Hmm. Yeah. I remember I was doing an article for Sound and Vision about room acoustics. And I was doing a thing about DIY room treatment, right? Stuff you could build for, I don't know, $50 at Home Depot. That would work pretty good. And I called Floyd up. This is right when the first edition of his book had been out. And maybe the second edition had come out. But I called him up because, he lived at the time, he lived like 10 miles away from me. And
nice.
I knew him pretty well. And I said, hey, I'm doing this article about room acoustics and I have a couple questions. You got a minute? He's like, sure, of course. And I start talking to him about it. I'm like, on page, whatever of your book, you say blah, 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 blah. He's like, wait a minute. You read it? I'm like, of course I read it.
That's
How
what
could I
happens when
not
you
read
publish a book.
this? He's like, well, there's a lot of people that haven't read it. And there still are a lot of people that don't understand. I mean, as Dennis and I talk about in our podcast now, which we call Audio
Unleashed.
Thank you.
That's the best voice.
We talk about this all the time. Now, there's still people that are just completely ignorant of this stuff, who have not read any of the papers, even though the stuff that Floyd and Sean writes is really easy to read. It's not like most AES papers. And, there's still just so many people who are completely, utterly ignorant about it. And it's sad to me. And if this was Audio Unleashed, I'd be starting to rant right now. That's what Dennis pays me to do.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are people that have a vested interest in not understanding his work because, they would then have to actually put some design impetus into their products, or they would no longer be able to do the things that give them their unique marketing spin,
Right.
So who was it that said, it's hard to convince a man of something that is that is against his financial interest to understand, or something like that. Like if somebody's getting rich off of a misunderstanding, you're not, even if they know they're wrong, they're not going to admit it. So like his research is controversial.
I think it was Upton Sinclair.
That sounds
who said
right.
that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going Rene Descartes on me, the old school, where it's no man dies for what he knows to be true. He dies for what he believes to be true, but knows in his heart there's some doubt.
Oh, man.
Going philosophy on you guys. Anyways.
Sorry, I'm a Hegel fan. I'm not Cartesian, so you lost me there.
Moving right along.
Yeah.
Season 4. The idea behind season 4, as we were kind of wrapping up season 3, it was we kind of had that foundation. There was a lot of really good information about how, or the different areas of audio, how it comes to be, and then we talked about the fundamentals and how the history of it to get to where we are. Season 4, a lot of the idea was how it was made and where it was made. We have this very unique thing at SoundStage where we get to have access to a lot of these companies' manufacturing facilities, their engineers. They're very willing to kind of show us behind the scenes. Let's start exploring what actually goes on to take that theoretical idea, to like take Floyd Tool's work, for instance, and then make it into a physical product.
Yeah.
And I find that absolutely fascinating because not only like there's, how could I say this? There is generally accepted ideas of what good speakers are and good headphones and all of that. But the variance in how people achieve those results is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's also the fact that we were sort of brainstorming season 4 around the time the Trump regime took over.
That's right.
Threw everything into chaos with regard to, manufacturing and importation and the supply chain and things like that. I mean, we were looking at prices just going out of control. It's like a subwoofer that cost you, $250 one month was now costing you $850. And if you could even get it, I remember looking at RSL's webpage and they're like, we might have some subwoofers in 10 weeks or something like that.
Jeez.
And, it led to conversations with Doug about like, people don't think about where and how things are made and why things are made where they are and what the consequences are of manufacturing somewhere like the USA. Like, can we just start making speakers and electronics in the US? Right? What does that mean? And so that was a lot of the driving force of why we did season 4 the way we did. And also we started doing a lot of field recordings for season 4, which has created an interesting production challenge because, I'm not there to monitor the recording in a lot of cases. And we're learning, on my dime, unfortunately, like what it means to make a good recording at a location, because recording for audio is way different than recording audio for video, right?
Yeah.
Especially
100%.
with the way we edit the podcast and things like that. So it's been a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge, but we're learning. We're getting better, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And so from my side of it, I've already been going to a lot of these places for years, packing up gear, figuring out gear, working with you to be like, okay, so I got this mic and this mic. Nope, that doesn't work. Let's figure out this. Let's figure out a room situation. And it's working with whatever the company has available and then whatever the people have available. And
I like the little surprises though. Like, hey, by the way, we recorded this one on a boat. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, I got to clean up this mess.
So that was by far one of the coolest experiences. That was very cool. In Calhoun, Axiom, we're up in the middle of nowhere, Ontario, Canada, and we recorded one episode in his anechoic chamber, which is designed and built to match the one at NRC, which was I don't want to speak for you, but I would assume that was probably easier to kind of manage.
That was the easiest one I've produced so far. Yeah,
exactly. And then we flip out to, okay, well, I want to kind of show you my place on the water and this beautiful lake, and I have this amazing boat and all this. Let's record a podcast on the boat. Yeah, that's a good idea. So we literally boated out.
Post.
Yeah. To the middle of the water. And there was a few takes in there that probably didn't make it into the final edit. I know it didn't make it in. Because literally the pump, the bilge pump, kicked on to kind of help the water get out of the boat and all of that stuff. So you heard that. Those kind of things, very cool, a unique perspective. And I think the information in the conversation was also really unique. But I can imagine the production challenges to make that come together were a little bit more tough.
I think the episode that stands out most to me in season 4, though, is the one with Paul Hales, which Doug titled Paul Hales Unleashed, which I thought was hilarious. But boy, Paul was just no holds barred, was it? I mean, it was just like he held nothing back, talking about the realities of production, onshore and offshore, how, the tariffs have affected everything. I mean, he just held nothing back. And I thought it was one of the most honest conversations that I've heard anybody have the courage to have in the manufacturing space.
It's funny you mentioned that. And that was the episode when you started talking about season 4. I was like, that's the episode that kind of struck me because he manufactures both in the United States and overseas. And he was very honest. He's like, I couldn't manufacture everything in the United States. It's not possible. It's not only not financially possible, the prices of things would be out of this world. It's not technically possible with the level of quality they were looking to achieve, with the materials they were looking to use, with what is available in the United States.
But also, he was talking about the fact there's some stuff you can't manufacture in China.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, the thing that makes China work is economies of scale, right?
100%.
He's like, if I need one of something, there's no way I'm having it manufactured in China, right? If I need 13 of something, we're making it in the US, right? And I thought it's a really interesting point that not a lot of people think about.
I like that episode a lot, and it really dovetailed. I mean, I've done a lot of consulting for different companies, and it dovetailed so much with the things that manufacturers have told me. And because there's a lot of this, at least in the US, there's a lot of this idea that, oh, everything should be made here and blah, 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 blah. But people just are completely ignorant of the realities of that. And, as Paul was saying, the standards for manufacturing have gone much higher than they were when everything was made in the US, 50, 60 years ago. And, even just like the standards for packaging, right? And they have risen so much, and you can't get that kind of packaging done in the US. Nobody does it. And yeah, you can build a plant to do it, but it's going to take you 5 years to do that. You can't build a plant in a year. And, not much of a plant, not a sophisticated packaging plant.
Not one to make speaker pajamas. I'll tell you that.
And I think it was, I wish everybody in America could listen to that podcast. Of course, they wouldn't, as with Audio Unleashed, most people that listen to it wouldn't understand what they're talking about. But, it was so, he kind of laid it all out there in ways that people have only done with me in private conversations.
Yeah. He was very upfront. That episode also got a lot of listener feedback, people emailing me, which happens from time to time. Like different episodes, there's something that's said, and people either send something and they're like, I don't agree with this at all, or this is fantastic. I didn't know about either this company or this product or this manufacturing process, technology, whatever it is. So the comments and the dialogue is really interesting. But that one in particular, that Paul Hales one, got a lot of people emailing me, and just really interesting, and people like following up with different questions about Pro Theory, like his company, but then also about like manufacturing in general, which I found absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
How do you guys deal with comments, by the way, from your podcast? Do people reach out, positive or negative?
We have a Patreon page, and that's where we get most of our feedback. We got a nice little community sort of forming on Patreon, and like there are some people. Also, people leave comments occasionally on our YouTube page for whatever reason. Although our traffic on YouTube is a fraction of what it is on Patreon and all the podcasting services, but people like to comment there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the comments are very supportive, but then we do, I think maybe once a month, get a comment from somebody that's like, I don't understand why you guys are so mean. Why can't we all just get along? Why can't it be both? Why can't it be objective and subjective? And it's like, do you even listen? Because that's like our whole message. Yes, the listening is what matters. And the science and the objectivity reinforces that, gives it strength, is also a sanity check and a fact check in a way. But like people are just, I don't know, people get really sensitive and think we are just like Audio Science Review or something. And it's like, only thing that matters is measurements. And it's like, did you even listen? So we do get a lot of feedback, and I would say 90% of it is good. But the stuff that I remember is the stuff where people just completely miss the point and think we're just a couple of meanies.
And sometimes some people want a nice I mean we get pretty opinionated, and sometimes people don't like that. And we're kind of factinated, I think is a better way to put it. Is that we just lay the facts out there. We don't sit there. We're not like in love with our opinions that I don't know, synergistic research cables are the best, right? We're not the type of people that think such opinions are worth anything at all. But we just lay out the facts of like what research has been done, what we know. And there's so many writers out there who I consider to be charlatans and ignorant and whatever. I mean, they're having a good time, I guess. They're dudes who like messing around with speakers, but they don't know what they're talking about. And they're aggressive in their ignorance. And so we're aggressive in our combating that ignorance.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's our opinion that that there is an objective reality and that facts matter. I mean, that's an opinion.
Well, I think so. How can I put this? Like, I feel extremely fortunate because I've been around audio my whole life, and then over the last decade or so, have been coming closer to hi-fi than I ever thought. And these esoteric speakers and crazy prices, and I remember my first moment when I had kind of the hi-fi epiphany. I don't want to be like kind of lame and say that, but that first moment where I'm like, oh, I get it. I get why somebody spends a crazy amount of money and is always kind of after this holy grail of a setup for them. I get that. But I feel like...
Wait, what was that? What was that moment for you?
It was episode 1 of season 2. It was the Kef Blade speakers in Maidstone, England. And, Kef Blade 2. I was corrected when I went there, and they're like, no, it was the Blade 2s. Okay. Those speakers, like, they blew me away. And still to this day, we've been back to Kef a few times. Absolutely love their facilities, love their folks. Their engineering team is phenomenal. And I guess this kind of ties in very nicely. People like Jack Oakley Brown, like the head of technology for Kef, and I think now Celestion as well. Like being able to have access to these folks and have them explain stuff and have them going over their research and what they have found in their lengthy, very established careers, I feel extremely fortunate to be around that.
Yeah.
And I want to say that we are very diverse in kind of the people that we speak to and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it seems like a lot of the major companies all kind of have a similar belief in the fundamentals. And I don't see a lot of that crazy swings to one side or the other when it comes to the either fully objective or fully subjective or this and that. Like,
yeah,
people generally seem to be balanced how could I say that? The companies that I've been exposed to, people generally seem to be pretty well balanced.
Yeah. Well, we haven't had synergistic research on yet, so.
Well, I mean, it would be fun to have a network switch on there because I still can't understand that idea. But
yeah,
Wi-Fi network switch. Well,
yeah,
maybe one day. Maybe that's season 5.
Well, and plus I have to say, SoundStage has tended to being, coming from the whole Canadian school and being very influenced by Floyd and his colleagues. SoundStage has tended to gravitate, even, before I started writing for him in 14, something like that. SoundStage, I think, always gravitated towards companies that were more straightforward and more science-based and less of the guys who slap random speaker drivers all over the place and call it musical.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So you're exposed. You're being. It's almost like the people are being cherry picked for you. We could tell you some people to interview who would be a little less doctrinaire in their approach, to put it,
very politely.
Yeah.
And I guess here's a good thing. We're on episode 100, so I mean, massive milestone. You guys started this. I have been fortunate enough to be on the ride since season 2. What do you think for our listeners? And I'm sure the demographic probably overlaps some bit, but also I would assume that the demographic of our listeners is people that might be learning more about hi-fi or getting into it for the first time. What do you think season 5 should bring to the table? What questions or what aspects maybe we haven't covered as much yet, or I haven't dived into or dove into English language that you can imagine would be interesting and educational?
Brent, sick 'em.
Well, I think personally,
love it. Let's hear it.
What I'd like to see, and this is purely for my own amusement, I'd like to see you broaden your horizons and start to bring in some more manufacturers who have a different viewpoint about what makes good audio. And I have plenty I could recommend for you.
You're making my life really hard here. Didn't we
Plus,
talk
I know
about how
Dennis-
we were all lazy?
I know Dennis is going to have to listen to this and actually produce it and then come to me with amusing stories about it.
Yeah.
So and I'm not actually kidding about that. I think that, if you don't go talk to these manufacturers, then they're just still telling their story, and there's still a lot of reviewers that. But no one, the people at the Absolute Sound. I'll just name a name. The people at the Absolute Sound are not going to go to some company that makes AC line conditioners or something, and really try to nail them down on the theory behind their products and actually demonstrating the efficacy of their products. They're just going to say, we have some kind of filtration. They're going to go, oh God, oh, that's great. Oh my God, it's so musical. There's so much more inner detail. And if you don't engage with those people, then those stories just stay out there,
Yeah.
What about you, Dennis? Is there any thoughts that you had for the next season and where we can go?
Yeah.
More companies, more broad range?
I thought it was probably time to ask Doug what he wants to do with season 5, because if it's his idea, then, there's a lot less friction.
There you go.
Let's let him be the driving force of what season 5 is going to be. Because, look, man, he's come up with some really great ideas. I think the whole, learning about hi-fi for season 2, I think the whole history of hi-fi at season 3, I think going to where the manufacturers are, talking about the process of where things are made and why, all of those were Doug's ideas. And I think they've all proven to be exactly the right idea. So let's get out of the way and let him come up with the idea for season 5. And I'll just be the monkey behind the scenes, pulling the cords and the levers and making it sound as good as I can.
Love it. All
Jorden,
right.
does Dennis ever do his Doug impression for you?
No.
Oh boy.
Okay.
You just put me on the spot, man.
Oh God.
It's pretty great.
What do we got here?
It's almost indistinguishable from Doug.
Well, I can't do it now, can I?
Okay, just tipping
We can
you
come
off.
back to it.
Just tipping you off.
You're in trouble, sir.
I'm always in trouble.
That's true.
I mean, that's part of having fun in life.
Yeah.
So to finish this off, because you guys have been gracious with your time, and now Dennis has to edit this, so I want to respect that as well. The typical question that I ask, I'm going to change it a little bit. Brent, what have you been listening to lately that you want to throw out there so that I can steal it and put it on my playlist?
Oh my God.
You can plug your own music as well.
No, I don't listen to my own music. It's a bunch of crap. Some people like it. There's always somebody who's going to like it. I have been listening to, I just read a book about 1980s Miles Davis stuff, which is often derided, but it always took people decades to catch up to what Miles was doing. And so I went back and listened to some 80s Miles, and a lot of it is crap, but Miles Davis Decoy, I think, is a really interesting record. There's some stuff on it where he's like, oh, come on. But there's some pretty heavy stuff on there, harmonically and the melodically, and it's more experimental than most Miles records. And I'm going to say also, you're going to have to give me a sec here. I got to look at my Qobuz, because I listen to Qobuz because I am an audiophile.
Hey, my Spotify now has high fidelity audio.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, so also I've been listening to, wish me luck on this, Thorbjorn Rissiger. And I guess he's from some European
Slavic
country where they put like a slash through the O's and stuff. And holy moly, you listen to this guy, it's like, it is kick ass. It is really good. It's kind of, it's blues based and stuff, but it's not boring, my baby done left me, blah, 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 blah. It's not that kind of blues. It's really deep, and his voice is kind of like if Dennis sang. It's really
nice.
good.
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm finding him. So it's Thorbjorn Rissiger and the Black Tornado?
Rissiger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dig it, man.
Oh, that's cool. Dennis, hit me. What are you going to add to my playlist?
I've discovered far too late, but I recently discovered that last year, Jad Abumrad, who's the guy who does Radiolab, produced a podcast series about Fela Kuti called Fela Kuti Fear No Man. Fascinating podcast series, and I'm only about 3/4 of the way through it now, so I just started listening to it like at the beginning of the new year, rather recovering from surgery. And God, it's just reminded me of just how much Fela Kuti's music influences so much of the music that I love today, but also just how great his music was in and of itself. I'd forgotten about the record that he did with Ginger Baker, so I've been going back and listening to that, and I've been listening to a lot of Africa 70 and Egypt 80, his two bands. So, and also as I'm exploring that and sort of rediscovering a lot of Fela Kuti's music, I'm reminded of how much he influenced, like A Tribe Called Quest and Wu-Tang Clan and things like that. So I've been listening to a lot of the hip hop that I think would not have existed in its form without Fela Kuti's music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for anyone out there that cares, after talking to Lasse Danielson from Electro Company a couple weeks ago, that man is an encyclopedia of music history and knowledge. He has me going back onto some of these old ones, and we were talking a little bit before about 80s music that might not have been the best music, but had like cultural impact on that. I'm now listening to a bunch of Dire Straits and Peter Gabriel and the Police that he's been recommending, and I'm like, Murder by Numbers?
Yeah.
New appreciation for that.
Good stuff.
What's your favorite Gabriel album?
Ooh, so this was a topic of conversation. I never was really into Peter Gabriel as much. Like, I always kind of had it on the back. But he told me to go re-listen to Sledgehammer. So I've been listening to Sledgehammer. And what album would that have been on?
So that was on
there
So.
you go.
Yeah.
So that's been my my last few weeks.
That's an easy pick, man. So's a great album.
Yeah. I'm rediscovering a lot of this stuff. I never really got into it all that much back in the day. Like, it was always around, but it never was interesting.
Back in the day, as if you were born when So came out.
Definitely not born. Definitely not born.
Wow.
I mean, back in the day, as in, this is a long way from my punk rock and metal and all of that I kind of had throughout my teenage to even now. I still listen to all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Before my musical horizons have expanded.
I got it. Cool.
Anyways, thank you so much, gentlemen. Was there anything else that you guys want to shout out? Is there something going on with your podcast, the Audio
Unleashed? We just hit episode 70, so that's a pretty big milestone. We're about 30 episodes behind SoundStage. Gaining steam, doing good stuff. Trying to bring a few more guests because people like it when we do bring in guests. So I'm doing a little bit more of that. It's always interesting bringing a third person to the conversation, but I'm enjoying it. Brent, are you digging it?
Yeah, it's a chance to, shoot the bull with one of my best friends and trash people that we think are not presenting I don't even know how to put it.
I just meant, are you digging having the third person in the mix as much as we're doing it recently? Because we've definitely been ramping that up.
Yeah, it's more of a challenge to have a guest because normally we just kind of go on and on and on. And then Dennis is like, okay, we've talked about this enough. But with the guest on, it's harder to edit it, first of all, because it tends to go on a lot. And our guests are not, we're used to being on mic and our guests often are not. And so, some people are naturally great on mic and some people are not.
Yeah.
As you know by now, that's for sure.
Ain't that the truth? I'm still learning myself. Thank you so much, both of you, and take care and all the best.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Jorden.